Sophie Long has the latest from Los Angeles.
The frantic efforts to save Helena Hutchins in the moments after she was shot. It was during rehearsals on the set at the Bonanza Creek Ranch in New Mexico when the shootings and deaths depicted on the 19th century western they were filming became all too real. Alec Baldwin was holding the gun that discharged the bullet that killed her.
How's it going, sir?
He was also one of the film's producers. He now faces 2 charges of involuntary manslaughter. In a statement, the actor's lawyer said, "This decision distorts Helena Hutchins' tragic death and represents a terrible miscarriage of justice. Mr. Baldwin had no reason to believe there was a live bullet in the gun or anywhere on the movie set." The film's armourer who loaded the gun, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, faces the same charges. The first assistant director, David Halls, has agreed to plead guilty to negligent use of a deadly weapon. The Santa Fe District Attorney said, "On my watch, no one is above the law and everyone deserves justice." Helena was survived by her young son and her husband, Matthew Hutchins. After he reached a settlement in his wrongful death lawsuit against the producers in January last year, he said filming of Rust would resume. The criminal charges are a devastating development for Baldwin, who's 64, and has said he was heartbroken by the incident.
Am I being charged with something?
He's always denied responsibility for Helena's death, saying he'd been told the gun was safe. His lawyer says they will fight the charges and they will win.
That was Sophie Long reporting on that story for us. And a little earlier, I spoke with the former U.S. federal prosecutor and president of the LA-based West Coast trial lawyers, Neama Rahmani, who told me what the charges in this case will actually mean.
There's 2 separate manslaughter counts. The first has a potential sentence of up to 18 months in prison for Alec Baldwin, but it's really the second charge that's the most serious, because it has a firearms enhancement that carries a mandatory minimum sentence of 5 years in New Mexico State Prison. So if Baldwin is convicted of that second count, a judge can't sentence him to below that 5-year number.
Indeed, and we have that statement, don't we, from Alec Baldwin's attorney, who has said that the decision distorts Helena Hutchins' tragic death and that they will continue to fight these charges. And they're quite confident, as they say, that they will win. But what will the prosecution have to prove in this case?
Well, they have to prove that it's more than a mere accident. Simple negligence just isn't enough for criminal liability here. So the district attorney today talked about Alec Baldwin independently needing to verify that the gun was safe and not loaded. And she also discussed the live rounds and shootings on set, the reckless and cavalier attitude of many of the staff members of the production company. And there's also other bases for liability. Perhaps Baldwin should not have pointed the finger or pointed the weapon at Hutchins, even though he believed it was unloaded. And he said he didn't pull the trigger, but the FBI says that he did. And there's a question of whether he should have cocked the hammer back. So whether it's one of these factors or a combination of reckless behavior is what the district attorney's office is going to need to prove.
In terms of penalties, what are we looking at here?
Well, we're looking at potentially years in prison for Baldwin, and that's why I don't think a resolution will be reached. We saw Dave Halls plead guilty, really get a slap on the wrist, 6 months probation, but I don't think the district attorney's office can offer any type of deal in this case that Baldwin and his lawyers will accept. So this case will go to trial. Baldwin, of course, has a strong defense that he was told that it was a cold gun and he didn't know and he didn't act negligently or recklessly. But if he is convicted, especially of those more serious counts, he's going to do time in prison.
And do you have a sense of what process we're looking at and the kind of time frame we're looking at?
Well, Baldwin won't be arrested. He'll be given what we call a summons or a notice to appear, and he'll be arraigned on these charges. And then New Mexico has a 6 months, approximately 182-day speedy trial clock. Now, of course, criminal defendants like Baldwin will routinely waive their right to a speedy trial and push this out. But we're going to see the beginning of the criminal process, the first step being, of course, Baldwin appearing in court and answering to the charges.